They called him the Butcher of Plainfield. He'd flayed the faces off of corpses and dried them out.
A man whose life and dark deeds have served as inspiration for countless horror films and books.
He would go out to the graveyard on the night of her funeral, dig up the coffin, pry it open, remove either the entire corpse, and bring them back to his farmhouse to perform these grotesque rituals on.
In the quiet heart of rural Wisconsin, where the cornfields stretched to the horizon and everyone knew your name, the tiny town of Plainfield believed in neighborly trust. But hidden inside a secluded farmhouse, less than a mile from town, a macabre reality was taking shape. A reality so dark, so bizarre, that it would shatter American innocence and inspire the most terrifying villains in horror history. This is the true, chilling story of Edward Theodore Gein, known forever as the Butcher of Plainfield. Born in 1906, Ed Gein's life was defined by crippling isolation and the fanatical devotion to his mother, Augusta. His father, George, was a timid, alcoholic man. Following his father's death in 1940, Augusta's severe religious adherence manifested as constant psychological conditioning. This doctrine was enforced rigidly. Any attempt by Ed or Henry to form friendships outside the home was met with swift, brutal punishment. This constant, fearful instruction achieved a crucial psychological outcome. It arrested Ed's social development and instilled within him a profound, deeply embedded fear of women and normal adult sexuality. Simultaneously, this conditioning ensured Ed's total submission and adoration of Augusta. His psychological framework became highly fragile, structured solely around his mother's presence and approval. The absence of external coping mechanisms meant that when this sole anchor was removed, there was nothing left to prevent an immediate and total break from reality. Set the stage for the extreme necrophilic behavior that followed, as his only perceived pathway to emotional security lay in literally or symbolically recreating or possessing his mother. The psychological environment of the Gein farm, though oppressive, maintained a perverse stability until a series of deaths shattered the structure, culminating in the event that directly triggered Ed's murderous transformation. Ed, then 39, was left utterly and completely alone in the isolated farmhouse. The timeline of Gein's descent into active criminality begins here. Driven by an unbearable loneliness and a desperate, literal desire to bring his mother back, his psychosis rapidly worsened. This led directly to the pathological quest for the female body that began roughly 2 years later. Around 1947, Gein began his necrophilic activities by committing systematic grave robbery at the local Plainfield cemetery. This activity was highly selective and purposeful. He focused on robbing the graves of recently buried, middle-aged women who physically resembled his deceased mother. This selective targeting strongly reinforces the goal of his endeavor, which was rooted in maternal resurrection or substitution. Gein confessed to disturbing as many as 9 bodies, primarily for their skin and bones, which he intended to fashion into items. The bodies were sought not strictly for necrophilia in the sexual sense, but for the literal possession, reconstruction, and transformation of the female body to serve his fantasy of fusion. The desecration of graves eventually proved insufficient for Gein's escalating pathological needs. Decayed cemetery bodies often lacked the quality or quantity of material, particularly skin required for his increasingly complex crafts. The necessity for fresh, supple material that better facilitated his attempts at physical transformation appears to have driven the eventual lethal transition from body snatcher to murderer in 1954. The discovery inside the Gein farmhouse in November 1957 revealed a house saturated in functional psychosis, where the line between object and human remains had entirely dissolved. Gein did not merely collect morbid trophies. He integrated human remains into his everyday utilitarian environment. When Sheriff Arthur Schley and Deputy Frank Warden entered the farmhouse during the search for Bernice Warden, they discovered one of the most sickening scenes. Warden's body was found in a summer kitchen shed, hanging upside down, completely decapitated and eviscerated, or dressed out like a deer. This methodical approach to processing the body suggested a chilling, almost industrial technique, which quickly led to his moniker, the Butcher of Plainfield. The most chilling discovery was the evidence pointing to Gein's attempt to construct a woman's suit of human skin. This artifact was not merely an accessory, it was the ultimate pathological goal, a highly specific manifestation of transvestism and necrophilia. Gein confessed his dark purpose, to literally crawl back into his mother's skin and become her, stated in the source narrative. This attempt at physical transformation symbolized a psychic fusion with the lost maternal figure, a pathological mechanism aimed at internalizing the female form to overcome the deep-seated terror and condemnation of sexuality instilled by Augusta. While Gein admitted to disturbing 9 bodies from local graves, his documented escalation to murder involved 2 women in the Plainfield area, marking the final lethal phase of his criminal career. Mary Hogan, a tavern owner, disappeared in 1954. In the quiet, trusting atmosphere of Plainfield, her vanishing was initially treated as a missing persons case. It was only 3 years later, during the investigation of Bernice Worden, the 58-year-old co-owner of the Plainfield hardware store, Frank Worden, her son, and a deputy sheriff, immediately grew suspicious because Ed Gein was the last person known to have been at the store, having purchased antifreeze the previous evening. Deputy Worden and Sheriff Arthur Schley swiftly drove to Gein's isolated farm, leading to the pivotal discovery. The scene discovered by law enforcement cemented Gein's grotesque reputation. Bernice Worden's body was found hanging in the shed, decapitated and eviscerated, stated in the source narrative. The method suggested a mechanical, almost detached efficiency. This discovery confirmed Gein's involvement in homicide and established a 7-year span of criminal activity. The transition to murder was likely necessitated by the material requirements for his macabre crafts, which required fresh, unspoiled skin unavailable from desecrated graves, confirming the shift from the grave robber to the calculated killer focused on acquisition of materials. When apprehended, Gein was surprisingly docile, quietly admitting to both the murders of Hogan and Worden, stated in the source narrative. He claimed he was in a daze, almost sleepwalking, during the acts, and confirmed that both women physically resembled his late mother, reinforcing the maternal substitution motive. Gein's arrest led to a complex judicial process that highlighted the profound psychological nature of his crimes. Due to his overwhelming psychological disturbance, Gein was diagnosed with schizophrenia, stated in the source narrative, and initially declared mentally unfit for legal proceedings. On January 6, 1958, shortly after his crimes were uncovered, he was committed to the Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane in Waupun, Wisconsin. While institutionalized, the mild-mannered Gein worked various jobs, including mason, carpenter's assistant, and medical center aide. 11 years after his arrest, in early 1968, Ed Gein was finally determined to be competent enough to face trial. The legal outcome carried a vital distinction. Gein was found guilty of committing the physical act of murder, but was simultaneously declared not guilty by reason of insanity. This legal separation was crucial. The verdict affirmed the factual reality of his crime, while confirming that he lacked the requisite criminal intent, due to his psychological state at the time of the murder. This finding mandated his return to psychiatric confinement, ensuring he remained institutionalized for the rest of his life, first at Central State and later transferred to the Mendota Mental Health Institute in Madison. The shocking revelations transformed Plainfield from a quiet, trusting agricultural community into the center of a national horror story, prompting an immediate need for symbolic and physical cleansing. The discovery of Gein's crimes permanently scarred the American psyche. Gein's legacy endures not merely because of the violence he inflicted, but because of the grotesque, functional utility he found in human remains. His crimes revealed that the greatest potential for evil did not always reside in urban shadows, but could be nurtured in the quiet, isolated heartland of America. By inspiring foundational works of horror, the story of the Plainfield Ghoul permanently ensured that the terror of Ed Gein lives on as an enduring archetype of psychological extremity and rural decay.